So, Jake, you basically burst on the scene on Monday Night Football against Jacksonville, and then you come out in week two and proved, for you anyway, and proved it wasn't a fluke against Indianapolis. You put up 34 points each game. Have you been even remotely surprised at what you've done? Passer rating of 117 in these two games. I mean, aren't you sitting there saying, wow, this is really happening?
I think there was a little bit of that naturally, but I've always thought I was pretty good. Had a lot of confidence in myself. I've had a lot of reps against our defense and scout team periods where I've kind of had numbers like that, and you're not really supposed to do well in those periods. So I had a lot of confidence from that. But there's something to be said about doing it in an actual game when you're live and stuff like that. And so I think getting that first touchdown drive in Jacksonville, and then kind of felt like, all right, this is what that's supposed to feel like, and been building on that ever since.
It was interesting in Jacksonville that Zac Taylor really seemed to just sort of let you go. He really was calling plays not to try to protect you. He was like calling downfield throws early on in that game. And I wondered, was that the plan all along, to basically just let you, play like it would be just an absolutely normal game instead of trying to give you, sort of take baby steps to give you confidence in a big game like that?
Yeah, I think when you're playing a team like Jacksonville, obviously they're a really good team, and so you have to play like that if you have any intention of winning the game. And so, yeah, that's kind of been my communication with them is, call whatever plays are gonna help us beat whoever we're playing. I don't want to sit in the room on Monday and watch the film, or Tuesday with the Monday night game, but whatever, the day after the game, and say, oh, well, we just called this play to protect Jake, and we only put up 10 points, but at least we protected him. Like, give me a chance to go win or lose the game, and give us the best opportunity to win it. So I think Zac can maybe speak to his confidence in me, but I feel, like we called the game the way we needed to in order to win.
I think a lot of people last year were surprised at how well Brock Purdy played early on with the 49ers. And I remember covering him early on and talking to him about what he felt was really significant and what had really helped him. And he said, I played 4 years of college football. And I looked it up, and obviously he's in a Power Five conference just like you were. You were at Washington, Brock Purdy at Iowa State. He started 46 games. I think you started 54 games. And and yet Brock Purdy's the last pick in the draft. You're undrafted. Do you think sometimes the football establishment doesn't really respect guys who've played a lot of football in college?
I mean, I think there's definitely some of that. You feel like you've probably putting myself in a scout shoes. You probably feel like you've seen the guy plateau versus the guy that comes onto the scene for 1 year and has this incredible season, and there's not really enough tape to find all of his flaws. But that being said, my situation is a little bit different than Brock Purdy. I forget. I think this is only Brock's second or third year, and I've been in the NFL for a while,
Right.
so
Second, yeah.
so I'm a much different player than I was coming out of college, and so I think coming out of college, going undrafted, there's that balance of like, obviously I need to get better. I've been cut and on P squads, but still having that confidence of once I do figure out what I need to get better at, like I've never had a work ethic problem or anything like that, and so it will work itself out and just sticking at it. But I really think that's where I'm at is, yeah, I had the experience of playing, then I matched that with basically getting a bunch of redshirt years and continuing to improve. And now I'm kind of reaping the benefits of that.
Tell me, you were in Minnesota for what, 2 years on the practice squad mostly?
Yeah, 2 years in a preseason, all on practice
Yeah.
squad.
Yeah. And then you went to Cincinnati before the 21 season on the practice squad. Can you tell me just a little bit about what you think the benefit to you was to have been on practice squads, to actually be in NFL buildings for a long time and never really kind of face the fire of a regular season game?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some different circumstances that happen. COVID obviously does not help someone like myself with no preseason. And I think in 3 preseasons in Minnesota, I played like a total of like 3 or 4 quarters of football, and so I just hadn't really played in a long time. But back to your question of being in the room, I made sure that I got the most out of those meetings and on-field practice, and having the balance of learning from Kirk and Joe, kind of learning what they did well, mistakes they made, and learning through them, while also focusing on my own development of my own skills, and really taking my scout team reps seriously, keeping track of like completion percentage and stuff like that, um, to make sure that I was getting the most out of the situation I was in. And so I think being able to stay engaged and actively be involved in the meetings, and then doing the extra work in the weight room, and after practice getting the throws that I need to feel like I'm continuing to improve as well, was really valuable. And I wouldn't wish 4 years of no football on anybody, but I think it's worked out, and or has worked out so far. It has still only been 3 games, so I guess we'll see. But yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at.
Can you take me into one or two things you might have learned from Kirk Cousins, and now one or two things you might have learned from Joe Burrow that you believe have really helped you as a quarterback?
Yeah, I would say from Kirk, it was just well, like, basically how to be a pro. Coming straight out of college, I was with him and Sean Mannion, who had both been in the NFL for a little while at that point. Both super smart. I just saw how they studied, how Kirk took care of his body, and how well he played from the pocket, and how important it was to play on time, um, and play accurate. And so just realizing that there's a huge premium put on that in the NFL, and watch him play at a very high level doing that. And then coming to the Bengals, I got to watch Joe, who moves around a little bit more, kind of like I do, and how he incorporated that into his game, and his ability to take everything that's going on and really narrow down the focus of like, all right, here's my job. Like if whatever run play doesn't work, whatever play, you know, something happens, really being able to isolate, here's what I'm responsible for, here's what I need to do to get better. And the stuff outside of that, it's not taking the fault and blame for stuff outside of your control. Maybe within the media you do, but then just for your own sanity. I felt like in college, whenever, maybe I threw a good ball and it got dropped, and you start thinking, well, here's what I could have done to make it better. When really at the end of the day, it got dropped, and just move on. And it's not really, it's outside of your control. And so I thought I learned a really valuable lesson there from Joe, just kind of how he operates, and not really, I don't think either one of those guys felt any pressure to act like something outside of their own personality, which is nice for me because I don't know if I'm even capable of that. So really enjoyed my time with Kirk. Keep in touch with him, and obviously Joe and I have a great relationship too. So it's been very valuable.
My one story that I like to tell people about Joe Burrow, I went to Ohio University, and Joe is from grew up in Athens, Ohio, which is, whatever,
Yeah.
3 hours from Cincinnati. His dad coached there. But anyway, so I said to his dad early on, who I got to know a little bit, I said, hey, listen, I really like to write something long and, really a little bit intuitive and inside about Joe. What's your advice? And he just said, well, he goes, If you can't help him beat Kansas City, he's really not interested. And I thought, I love that. I really did love that. I wasn't mad
Yeah.
at it. I just said he keeps the important thing the important thing. He's not in this for PR. He's not, he wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to win a game this Sunday. All the rest of the stuff, yeah, that's fine. But that's kind of what I appreciate about him.
Yeah, he definitely does a good job of. I think there's always been, at least the last 2 years for sure, has been a lot of media circus around him, and watching him navigate that was definitely valuable for me.
Jake, I want to ask you two quick things in the time we have left. Number one, in the game against Jacksonville, your stats in that game are otherworldly. You're 32 of 37. I mean, I'm sure it's one of the best games you've played at any level of football. Take me into your mindset. It's Monday Night Football. Honestly, the Bengals' playoff hopes, if there are any, they're on the line in that game. You got to win that game. There has to be a lot on your shoulders going into that game. Nobody expects you guys to win, all that. How did you enter that game mentally?
I mean, I expected to win. I thought I thought 10-point underdogs was kind of ridiculous. But I mean, I get it, and I think for me it was all that you said, but I'm pretty busy with meetings and practice and walkthroughs and preparing that. I'm not really reading into a ton of that stuff. I just kind of know that I'm on a good team. We got a good defense, got a good O-line, good receivers. There's some parts around me where if I just do my job, we're gonna be able to put up some points. And really, I can't do anything outside of my control. Like I said, that Joe does a great job of focusing on. And so I just studied hard, knew my reads, tried to get through them quickly, and just stay in the moment and not really care if it was, you know, ups or downs. If we're down, if we're up, what the momentum is of the game, and just kind of tune out from all that stuff and just focus on my job. I think that's the best way for sanity.
Last thing I would ask you, as a guy who was on practice squads, who was behind the scene, who was on the bench for so long, did you ever think, man, I am never going to get my shot?
I think the hardest year to make it through was COVID. And, you're getting cut at the end of August, and they said, hey, this was basically a decision made in July. You had a great camp, but, you're going to be on practice squad. And the other guy didn't lose the job. And so you go through basically 3 off seasons of going into camp knowing that this guy needs to lose the job in order for you to get it. And then all 3 of them, they don't lose it. And they tell you, hey, you had a great camp. You're continuing to get better. It's very positive. And, you start to have that creep into your head a little bit. But I mean, what's really the alternative? You're going to just go quit and not play football? Like, I was still in the NFL. I still, there was not a single week of NFL football that I wasn't on a roster for. It wasn't like I was hanging out at home or anything like that. Like, I was still right in the thick of it. And I just had, you kind of got to keep the faith that something's going to shake out. Something's going to happen if you just keep at it long enough. And fortunately it did. I know it doesn't for a lot of people, but I didn't really see an alternative that, I'd be 50 years old with kids and kind of look in the mirror and be like, man, I just basically quit on myself and didn't double down on it. And I think, that would be a hard reality to be able to cope with. And so I think, I think something I was always taught growing up was, the worst thing to see is someone not fulfill their potential. Everybody's got different potentials and, different ceilings of what they can achieve athletically or whatever. And so for me, it was just, let's see where the ceiling is and just continue to try and fulfill my potential. And I think that kind of kept me at it for a long time, and having that perspective of down the road, at some point football is going to be over, and be able to look in the mirror and say, like, hey, I went through the thick of it. I kept my head down and kept working at it. And whether it worked out or not, like, at least I got that peace of mind.
It'll be pretty cool to see your old friends from the Vikings come to Cincinnati on Saturday in what is a huge game for both teams. And Jake Browning, I wish you luck there, and I wish you luck the rest of this year and in all your years. Stories like yours are what make jobs like mine a lot of fun. Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.